Welcome to another episode of The Power of United Impact. I am sitting here today with Christopher Williams. Thank you for being here today. And he is here from Eagle's Nest over in East St. Louis, Illinois, which is my hometown. Yes, I'm so excited to have you here to have this conversation because I want to help to raise awareness around Eagle's Nest and what you're doing over there and our partnership together in the community. But before we jump in, I want to remind people to follow United Way on all of the social channels and let them know that they can view and listen to our podcast wherever they like getting their favorite podcasts. And they can also watch us on YouTube and on Facebook. So with that said, I want to jump into the conversation and I want people to get to know you a little bit better. So Christopher, I know you're not from here, but tell us a little bit about you, and you can even mention that place you come to us from.
Yes, ma'am. I'm originally from Southside Chicago. Came here to St. Louis for school. Went and got my bachelor's in psychology. My early career was spent in mental health. That was my passion. Working with youth services as well as working with acute populations. And then outside of that, I transitioned and went back to school and got my MBA. And that kind of thrust me into positions of leadership. And then in that time, I transitioned back to St. Louis to take over at the Eagle's Nest, kind of blending both my passions, running the organization as well as that mental health component.
Well, let me just tell you, I joked when I said the place that you came from. I have a lot of respect for Chicago, and my husband and I, we like to visit there. We visit there often, but we love our St. Louis.
Yes.
We love St. Louis and love having you here with us, and so thank you for what you are doing out there in the community. I want to ask you a little bit more about Eagle's Nest. And so Eagle's Nest, I know it's a nonprofit over on the Illinois side, and you are helping to make positive changes and a difference across the metro area. It is targeting our homeless veterans in the metro area. And I want to know, and I want you to share more about the story behind the center. So, why was it created? And tell me specifically, who does it target? Give me more about that.
Yes, absolutely. So Miss Martha Watts, founder, her and her husband, Mr. Carl Watts, saw the need for a shelter for veterans. Miss Martha was a VA nurse for 20 plus years. So she had that direct insight into the need of the homeless veteran population being underserved. So during that time, back in 1997, she decided to open up a 501c3 organization. And then from 97 to about 2001, she was, really trying to figure out, building, funding, all of those, logistical parts. And so at that point in time, IDA came through in Illinois and donated us the old military armory, which is what we're in currently.
Yeah, it's a great building.
It is. And it's very symbolic, right? It served as the National Guard post, yes. And now it's serving them after our veterans, housing them as well. But then in 2009, we housed that first veteran. Unfortunately, Mr. Carl Watts passed away before seeing that first veteran being housed. But Miss Martha, with her grit, she really kept the dream alive and kept the center running. Many times being the executive director, stepping into that role. But with her, hard work and due diligence, it allowed us to be a beacon of light in that community for veterans, providing them that low barrier approach to housing.
And that you are a beacon of light over there. And I was talking to you earlier before we started this conversation. We were talking about, an opportunity or a couple of opportunities that I've had to come by the center or help to mobilize people over into the center because I want them to know and learn more about what you're doing. And opportunity, I think, is always created for people to get involved when they learn more about the center and they get more information from you.
Yep.
What made you want to do this type of work? I know you talked a little bit about your background, but what drives your passion for being connected there?
Yeah, absolutely. My stepfather was military. I grew up in a military home. So those were the times where I was really instilled a lot of what goes on for veterans, going for active service members, the sacrifices they make, even directly seeing it with my stepfather. And when he transitioned out, he was dealing with a lot. And so that right there directly mobilized me and really was a call to action. And I seen that also mentioning going back to my mental health. I'm very passionate about mental health. And so this was like perfect, both my passions, veterans, as well as that mental health component. And then I love and enjoy, take passion out of serving underserved communities.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's good that you have the military connection. And, I think back to, my dad was part of the Army for many years. He actually played baseball for the Army. But it was before my time, but my time with him was, on the other side of that. And he talked a lot about his time in the military. And then my brother he served in the Air Force for 23 years, and so did his wife. And they both are veterans right now, but they're working up at Scott Air Force Base. And so I still stay very connected to the military and what's happening. And so, I think a lot about veterans.
Yeah.
A lot about veterans. And so, again, that's why I appreciate so much what you're over there doing. Let's talk more about Eagle's Nest and your partnership with United Way as one of our safety net partners.
Yes.
Let's discuss, what the partnership looks like and maybe how the partnership has helped to support what you're over there doing.
Absolutely. Our partnership has been really a great resource. And not even just touching on the funding, just being a part of a bigger ecosystem. The bottom line is really just getting our veterans with a comprehensive approach to whatever they're facing. And that really truly allows us with that ecosystem to allow us to push what information that the veteran may need or the resources that they may need, and being able to contact that person in a one-stop hub. So that right there is the one biggest benefit. And then also, as we're in that community, we also still want to assist individuals that aren't veterans. So that's still an opportunity for us to, if an individual calls and they're looking for support, we have a actual number that they're going to actually 211 if they're going to have the opportunity to get that support or help that they need.
I was going to ask you about 211 because I know that the agency network and even the broader community depends on 211 as a vital resource for the community. And so I was hoping that you would say you are finding it beneficial to have the ability to direct people to it and to even leverage 211. When I think about kind of another evolutionary sort of shared technology platform that builds off of 211, I think about something called the Community Information Exchange, or CIE. And I know that helps us to tackle more of the big picture for families and clients, and would love for you to talk about how CIE is playing a key role in what you do as well.
Yeah, not only do we want to support the veterans, we want to support the community. So in supporting that community, that is one way that we could still assist the community and not only specifically address veteran homelessness.
Yes.
We can help, a single mother with a child. We can assist a young adult who's maybe, homeless or anything of that nature. Even when it comes to utilities, assisting them with utility assistance, and having a number that actually works, a number that they're going to actually get in touch with somebody that can actually help them. During my time, that was something that I noticed. If there was a lot of organizations doing a lot of very great things, but the communication piece, that comprehensive part, being able to get a good resource, give a good number to someone who's in crisis, and they actually get in touch with a human being and not a dial tone or a voicemail and never get that phone call returned.
It's always important for us to point to wraparound support, and that's what you're describing. It is, not just a single service offering. It really is having the ability to rely upon partners that, like I said, are part of the network at times, the safety net that we're talking about. Or if you are calling through 211 and through the resources that are attached to CIE, there are up to 28,000 resources we can tap into to maybe provide a service or help someone to navigate to resources that they may not even know exist out there.
Absolutely.
And one size certainly doesn't fit all, right? Everyone needs to be met with it where they are, and you kind of have a discussion and help to assess, like, what else can I provide to this person? Because we know people don't present with one issue. They don't just say, I need food and stop there. It's like, well, why does a person need food? You got to ask more questions.
So true. So true.
Mm-hmm. Can you think about a story? Because I'd like to sort of paint a really clear picture around what we're talking about. And I always think that stories help to sort of, create the visual around this. So is there a particular story or client that you were able to help through your resources that you want to tell us about?
Yeah. We had a veteran come to us. It was probably back in 2024, roughly around the end of 2024, that fall. He was a veteran. He was a double amputee. Our program is for independent living, so you have to be able to take care of ADLs and take care of your daily acts of daily living. But the gentleman very much showed that he was motivated.
Yeah.
With that motivation, we decided to go ahead, admit him into the program. And during that time, he was able to really address his sobriety. He really worked on it, worked hard on it, utilizing the resources we provided to him at the facility, really engaging with case management and really taking advantage of that. His story really stands out because when we originally got him, they were classifying him as a discharge as dishonorable. And then during my time and kind of going back to that community, I started asking questions, speaking to other veterans, speaking to active military members.
Yeah.
And it came across that because he had 3 years of great service, of honorable service, and he did have a dishonorable discharge on his second term, and it was only 1 year, the VA has to go off that first year or that first tenure of their military service. So he was actually an honorable veteran. So it really turned out that when they were telling me he was non-eligible for the VA benefits, we were able to go back and question that and argue that no, he's had positive service and you have to honor that. And that allowed him to really kind of catapult from there, because what was once a barrier was now open for him to be able to succeed. And he did exactly that. He was able to be housed. We connected him with some other resources, SSVF being one, to assist him with the rental assistance and things of that nature. He moved into his home. He was doing better with his family, getting reconnected with his children. And it was really a great sight to see.
I'll bet. Yes. So you were able to help to open that door wider just by exploring and asking the right questions and then doing the right follow-up.
Yes, sir.
It's a good story. What you describe, you were helping to support veterans through what I would call major life transitions.
Yes.
And so you're finding work for them, securing housing, something you just touched on, and so much more. How do you help to take that next step or help them to take a next step towards stability? Like long-term housing, for example. Do you have any
Yes.
cases like that?
Absolutely. I encourage all our veterans to come back. Enjoy, just be a presence here, maybe even motivation to the next veteran, share their testimony, what they went through, because I tell them so much that as a community of veterans, you all have, if anything, the most information when it comes to navigating that VA, because everybody's at a different point in that journey to permanent housing. So your best resource is going to be the man right next to you.
I think that, when I think about it, everything you're describing and moving into permanent housing and then having those who have moved into it come back and share their story, because I think it's a story of hope and optimism, and it's saying, regardless of what you are moving through as a challenging situation, I was able to do. Absolutely. And it's walking in like similar steps. And so I'm even thinking about how you help people to move into like a permanent job situation. And will you talk to me about maybe it can be one example of that, or just the broader picture around how you are helping people to connect to more permanent job placement?
Absolutely. Something that I noticed early on was a lot of our veterans were struggling with civilian life, job applying, or that whole process, filling out a resume, doing a cover letter.
Yep.
all of the things that we as a civilian life kind of take for granted or kind of don't even think about. So I noticed that as a big gap. So what we did was I reached out to a local organization, OBTT, which is the Off-Base Transitional Training.
Okay.
So normally that's offered to individuals who are recently transitioning out. But we saw opportunity there to teach our veterans some more skills when it comes to how to navigate in a resume, how to create a resume, how to navigate in an interview. What are some takeaways? What are some things that you should do? Things that we kind of know, like don't bring gum to an interview.
Yes.
Things like that, little tips and tricks, help them draft that resume, create that cover letter, and even articulate what they did in the military into civilian life.
That's tough sometimes to make that translation. And I have heard so many people that have struggled with that. In fact, there are services out there that help people to translate that because, there's so many skills you acquire while you're in the military. And then you get out here and you see all of these descriptions and you see titles that don't match up to what you were doing. But that translation matters because you many times find that you are so qualified for the role that you maybe found interesting. It's because you were kind of doing something very similar.
Yes.
It's just titled something differently in the corporate world. And so I think that we've got to do a better job at helping people to make the translation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yeah. That's what we try to do. We try to really help them with that. And then, we offer them opportunities to volunteer. So if they want to go into something, maybe we have a commercial kitchen. So if they want to go into some type of culinary field, they can definitely volunteer with our cooks, our chefs, and get that experience. And we'll draft that up, get a letter of recommendation from myself. And then that way they can have a full employment packet that they can go and feel confident when they go to that interview.
Okay. Well, I'm an amateur, but I love to cook. And so maybe that's the next opportunity for me to get over there. And I don't know if you take amateurs, like I said, but I will volunteer to be a sous chef maybe, and to come over there and help to, teach or prepare meals. And so I'm thinking about volunteers right now, and not just me, but ways that people can get engaged. And I'm going to tell you that, going to stlvolunteer.org is one way to understand what the opportunities are out there across the region. Yes. Do you use the site?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So what are some of the ways people can get involved as a volunteer?
Absolutely. Right now, we've been looking for a lot of mentorship. So individuals that's wanting to just come out, kind of be there for the veteran, kind of be that motivational piece, because that's something that I've noticed a lot of our veterans struggle with, that motivation of, because it seems so daunting to have to go essentially almost start all the way over. So really just that mentorship, some other volunteer opportunities. We have a community garden that we're on the process of updating. Donations is always a big one, helping organize and sort through donations. And then another bigger project that we're working on, we're going to be trying to complete a yard sale, kind of either giving it back to the veterans, furniture, couches, tables, things when they first move into their apartment. And then whatever's left over will be given out to the community. Okay. And then that'll be an opportunity, kind of like fundraising / support the community. But we have that as well, organizing and going through our garage that could use some little TLC.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask people again to go to stlvolunteer.org, the Community's Volunteer Center, to find out more about opportunities they can participate in over at Eagle's Nest. What are some of the biggest challenges you're facing over there while you're doing the work?
Biggest challenges. The biggest challenges I think is going to be centered around that mental health.
Right.
Making sure that we're advocating for the veteran in the entirety, no different than what you mentioned earlier. You're most likely going to be dealing with more than just one issue. It may be, multiple issues that kind of are indirectly or directly correlated, but really that mental health, really finding enough therapists that can provide that level of care. And it's another thing that made it very kind of open my eyes was as we were having therapists or referring our veterans to therapists, they were coming back and they were sharing that it's hard to share their story of their service with a non-service person. Right. They can't really relate to what they've been through. And so having to tell that story over and over. And then that whole aspect of, therapists sometimes transition and move in and out. Sharing that is like a re-traumatizing thing, having to go through it again and again. You get a new therapist and now you got to go through it again. So really finding them a space where it's veterans, talking about veteran things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to recommend that you tap into the partner network and just understand whether there is some expertise in that lane as far as mental health is concerned, because we have, several partners who are in that space. And I'm going to make the assumption that they have some veterans that definitely could assist with what you're describing.
I would definitely take a look at that.
A last question for you, because I want to know your motivation, your inspiration, and what drives you to continue to do this work.
Mm-hmm. Really, I fell in love with St. Louis being here in college. I love the environment. I love how, you can go out and go to a Cardinals game and be sitting next to somebody and laugh and joke, and you don't even know the person, but it's that kind of friendly environment. And being in East St. Louis, the biggest inspiration is really just that community. I think I came from a mindset being in St. Louis, the stigma behind East St. Louis, but by being there, meeting the community, the local churches, the local businesses, I truly find inspiration in the people there. Our veteran community there, they really, really do a lot for us at the Joseph Center, the VFWs, Scott Air Force Base has been out. Active service members have came out and done donations. So really just how the veteran and active members kind of rallied to the call. They knew we were there once they realized that we were supporting veterans, and they came running. And that's exactly what they did. So they really inspired me, just that level of looking out for their brother, kind of the same oath they take in the military.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I just feel like people help people.
Yes.
That's what you're describing. And, caring about your neighbor and caring about the next person, that's what's coming through as you describe your services and the support that you're giving. Appreciate you coming here and having this conversation with us. And I think we'll end it there.
Okay.
And I hope that through the conversation that information has been shared, stories have been shared that help to, again, raise understanding around more detail behind what's happening over at Eagle's Nest. And, I have to say that, the location has a special place in my heart. Is in East St. Louis, again, my hometown. And I am there visiting family more than 5 days a week. And so anytime I can drop in, I do. The other thing is you describe East St. Louis as almost like a small town feel.
Yes.
And I will tell you that I think that people feel that way about it that live there, and people, they know their neighbors really well, or they know the families of people that maybe they used to, they used to be neighbors, but the families now live in the homes. And so it really is kind of a small town feel, and everybody knows everyone. And so I think that, that's what's so special. One of the things that's so special about East St. Louis. So let's keep doing what we can to help people over there. And again, I thank people for tuning in today. And I'm going to ask you again to unite with us. And we just talked about what the power of united impact looks like. And that means all of us working together to make a tremendous difference in the community. I'll remind you to follow us on social media and like us, and share this episode if you can. Share this episode broadly, because I think that the more that we bring visibility and information to people, the more that they are going to want to be a part of what makes a difference in our lovely community. And so I thank you, Christopher, for being here again. And you can take me up on that offer to come over there and help cook. Okay. I will admit to that publicly, but thank you again.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the conversation.
It was a great privilege, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely.